Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Alright, so I decided to go ahead and post this on my book corner because I do have the largest number of subscribers, so I decided, put it on here instead of putting it on my fantasy channel, even though this is fantasy related. So, my book, Dragonheart, which is going to be coming out Christmas Day of 2025, and for people who want to know, I will be spending the next 9 months polishing it, making it sound good, and making it look good. So hopefully, the 9 months, I will produce a product that people will actually want to read. Now, as somebody who's releasing her second fantasy book, though it's not in the same universe as the Dragon Queen, though it does have two queens that are connected to dragons, because dragons are real popular, so that's why I went with it. Yeah. So, this is a YA fantasy book. And my goal is to try to at least do about 310, maybe 315 as a page count. But that number will probably go down as I proofread it and I polish it. But it probably might go up if I'm doing things like adding more scenes, adding more descriptions, things like that. So it may go up by maybe 3 or 4 pages. So when I was sitting down and starting to write this book, I had a clear vision of one thing. Okay? There is absolutely not going to be smut in this book. Okay? Seriously, no smut. After reading Iron Flame, and I'm getting literally just no, I'm tired of smut in my fantasy books. And I'm not going to say, oh, but I remember a time before when there wasn't smut. It's like, no, I'm not doing that. If Brandon Sanderson's numbers are any indication, there are a lot of people out there that do not want, or that can survive not reading smut in their books. Look at how many people went to his event. It was more people than what I saw. They even talked about overflow room. So, as much as we would like to believe that people cannot possibly live without smut in their fantasy books, there are a lot of people that are like, that's not why I read the book. I don't read fantasy to see people bang. I read fantasy to read about these magical worlds. And that's the thing that absolutely is important for me, is the magical worlds, the world building, and everything. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to get another book, blank book with lines, journal, and I am going to spend the next couple of weeks just writing down the character's name and basically their motivation. I already know their motivation. It's right here in my little noggin. I know their motivation. Gwen's motivation for doing what she does is, first of all, to prove to herself that she actually can do something. Because if you really look at her demographic here in the real world, compared to Mortlock, it is she's always looked down upon. She's always, nobody really pays attention to her. Except for her friend Kathy, who is a big nerd. She's a big nerd for fantasy. People really underestimate her, and she's really tired of that. She wants people to know that she can do something big. But when she enters this world and she has to be trained on how to use magic, and who she is. Like, she's a queen, so, like, you know, she's a descendant of this king. His name is Arthur. Yes, I know. I got it from Arthurian legend. But he was this good king. He was this king that really believed in, like, helping the little person. And that is exactly what Gwen is. Gwen knows what it's like to be the little person, knows what it's like to be the, you know, undervalued, like, all that. So that is her motivation. Her motivation is to prove that she can actually do something big. Her mother's, Rebecca's, motivation in the book is to protect her daughter. But she knows that her daughter has this bigger fate than she imagined. The houses and the courts, their motivation is just to be a nasty pile of garbage. That's their motivation. But I'm definitely going to put a lot of information into what I call my Bible, which is essentially going to be the history of this person, their motivation, all that type of stuff. And I'm using that information to furtherly polish my characters, or my characters in general. So you have, you know, I think I mentioned another video on my other channel, you know, that you have, like, the Druids. And the Druids they're very anti-violence because of where they came from and everything. So they're kind of like, they're not really an important group of people in the overall sense of the book, but they are important for a certain section of the book. Now, back to what I was saying, there is not going to be any smut or spice in this book. First of all, I wrote a whole book that literally has blood, guts, death, and sex. I am sexed out. I am really bad at writing those two particular kinds of scenes, and since it does not go with the theme of the book, which is basically taking back what belongs to you, becoming the hero that even your incarcerated father believes you can be, is the most important aspect of the book. The friendships that Gwen develops between, like, her elfling, who appears several times in the book. She encounters a whole slew of different kinds of people. She realizes how messed up that this fantasy world is. And one thing I want to make very clear when the book comes out and you sit down and read it. This is a very, I mentioned this, I think I mentioned that in the video that I'm uploading right now. It is a very political book. Books by nature are political. But the politics in this book is literally the big person trampling the little person, and the little people just accepting it. Like, yes, we're going to accept the fact is that you treat us like garbage because you have the power and we don't. And Gwen, as being someone who understands what these people go through, she is very, very receptive of their frustration and of their whatever. You don't really see that part of Gwen a bunch of times in the book because she is trying to get to this one destination. But there is a scene in which she will make food, like, magically appear to a family that hasn't eaten in, like, days. And she wears, she has the crown on her head, to indicate that she is royalty, but she's also like doing this for people. And it's more than just, I'm doing this to get allies, I'm doing this to get, to get something out of it. She's doing it because in her world, nobody really helped her family out. And everything. So it's very personal for her as somebody that knows what it's like to be poor and struggling to eat and struggling to keep the lights on and all that type of stuff. So Gwen is going to be a very a very compassionate character, and a character that I really hope people will give a chance to, because I know a lot of people are into like the spice and stuff. They're not into the friendship and the humility and any of that type of stuff. It's always going to be the spice. People love these shallow, like, one-sided characters that I personally cannot stand. And that was why I gave Iron Flame such a low rating. Because Violet is a idiot. No. But yeah, and it's just really, really like apparent that Gwen is not going to be a Violet. Gwen is not going to be a haunting Antlion kind of character. She's going to be a queen that knows that the only way that she's going to get rid of their power is by defeating their armies. And I will say, the first book is going to definitely be a YA young adult book, but as we progress in the series, it's going to move more into adult fantasy. But still, when we have adult fantasy, it's only an adult fantasy because of the amount of violence and blood and all that type of stuff, and scenes of like torture, but not her doing it, because she comes from a world where torture is, of course, illegal. And also the belief is that she has this belief is that if you torture someone, they will tell you anything to stop it, and that's why she does not allow torture. But it's more like that's how she is as a character. So yeah. So definitely something to definitely think about. So YA fantasy, if you look at YA fantasy from like what it used to be like in the early 2000s, late 90s, it definitely was more on the magic and the world building and all this type of stuff. And now YA fantasy includes spice and all that. And my book, as I said, is not going to have any of that. It's going to have friendship. It's going to have fellowship. It's going to have trials and tribulations that Gwen has to overcome in order to succeed in what she's doing. But yeah, so if you guys are willing to give the book a chance, I will be forever grateful for it. But I will be, as I said, I will be spending 9 months polishing it, making sure that I get it as close to good as I possibly can make it. So yeah. So I am going to end it here, and I will see you guys next time.